Well, the first time, the context is that in my childhood and upbringing, there was not very much Mahler in concert in Germany, from obvious reasons. He was banned in the Hitler times. And slowly only Mahler symphonies got into in concert programs. And there was a very famous actor at this time, Gustav Mahler, whom I knew, and that was the one who introduced me to the Second Symphony of Gustav Mahler, 1961. Yes. The door opened very quickly. And there are other composers, for example, who might have struggled with not understanding for years and years. And then the door opened all of a sudden. It was Shostakovich, for example. But with Mahler it went very, very fast. Not to overpower, but there's a danger to be on the fringe of tastelessness. It means if you don't understand why by certain people called, and in parentheses of course, trivial things are there and not trivial, and you let them be trivial and put away the quotation mark, then it's a danger. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And he was very, very serious with that. When he was somebody who also talked about this triviality, which is not trivial, but which is seen by people like as triviality. Those marches, for example, or those really obvious Ländlers, or the Bohemian dance in the first symphony, in the second movement, and that there's a danger to exaggerate the things, and he did not. Often people say that he milked this music. It's not true. I think not. He's a wonderfully classical also quotation mark, Mahler conductor. Well, he was very, very careful with advice, actually, and especially with Mahler, because he himself was always so overwhelmed after a Mahler symphony, after conducting a Mahler symphony. I remember 9 in Tanglewood, where I went afterwards to ask him something. He didn't answer. He was just so totally overwhelmed, which I can understand. Or after the second, so it was not that he didn't want to give advice, but he just lived the music, and that was his advice: how to be so intensely in the music and identify so intensely with the music. That was his best lesson, actually. That this man who was totally worn out after it, sweating, but it was not sweating his body, his soul was sweating, and that was his advice. Yes, I mean, it's obvious, actually. I think this irregular heartbeat at the beginning, and then in the climaxes, in fortissimo, where it is really desperate, is rather obvious. It's a bit like Shostakovich's second cello concerto at the end. There's a lung heart machine who is ticking. Well, first of all, Mahler loved Bruckner. He did the first performance of the whole piece of Bruckner's Sixth Symphony. And I think it comes from Schubert. Schubert, who influenced Bruckner enormously, and then Schubert, who influenced Mahler enormously. From Schubert, except of some movements of Haydn, not Mozart, Schubert brought first time the Austrian folks music into the classical music. In his four-hand works, very important Schubert works. All these marches with trios, the trios are really here from the nature. And in his Ländlers, in his dances, and then further on in his symphonies. Look at the scherzo of the C major symphony, for example. And Bruckner took very much of this landscape music, Austrian landscape music, into his music. And so did Mahler then from Bruckner. The Ländler from the Second Symphony comes from Schubert, and Bruckner and Mahler. His symphonies are the biggest, longest symphonies which used everything possible, singers, choruses, lacking only a narrator. But I mean, he's certainly the greatest symphonist ever. These symphonies are masterpieces in composition also. Sheer hand craftsmanship, craftsmanship. They are monuments of craftsmanship, because to compose this, not to interpret this is another thing, but to compose it in that clear way. Everything is clear with Mahler. There's nothing which is questionable, where you say, oh, this is not so well composed. No. Perfect. He himself, he said, my time will come. I mean, these were monsters for the audience. This was never heard. But the AIDS was actually the greatest success. The others were kind of semi-successes, And I mean, he conducted them in Essen, the Six, in Krefeld. I mean, these are not really musical capitals. It's a word, but he didn't dare to conduct them in Vienna because he had so many enemies already. That was terrible for him. Yeah. Oh yes. In a non-outspoken way, but for example, if you have this last movement of the Sixth Symphony, this is a catastrophic movement. And therefore, there's a connection to Berg orchestra pieces, which are written just before the outbreak of the First World War, and have certainly visionary of the catastrophe. And not the catastrophe of a war. There were many wars, but of that very First World War, which was so different from the other wars before, because it was the first modern war, in a horrible sense. And Mahler, especially in the sixth movement, touches that same theme, I think. Because from the beginning of the century on, of the 20th century, there was something in the air that was in many, many ways opening minds, opening the whole way of thinking of mankind, but also with it the possibility of the catastrophe destroying. He was a very courageous man, actually. I mean, courageous in any aspect. Courageous fighting against anti-Semitism, for example, in Vienna. Courageous in going to a new continent, to America, to create there something new. And courageous in seeing himself as a loner in creation, and touched the whole century. He died in 11, touched the whole century, in the 20th century also. Mahler is so modern today. Wonder that people like Boulez conduct Mahler all the time.